Hello and welcome to the Berkcast, the How to Train Dragon podcast. I'm your host HC, and with me Al.
Rush 2112.
And Wolf.
And today we are talking about the big daddy of all dragons, the one that single-handedly scrambled the entire canon into one big mess. The more I thought about it, the one dragon that breeds ice, unless you're Spyro the Dragon or something. It's the Bewilderbeast, the king of all dragons. Hmm. I improvised that entire opening, and I think it went well. What do you guys think?
I think you should have mentioned in TV and movie canon because, and this is coming from me, surprisingly, the one who doesn't read the books. Isn't there an ice spitter in the books?
Hmm.
um, Wolf
Ignore
just
that never happened.
Wolf just switched voice channels on accident. So
Yeah.
What I was going to say is, I'm not quite sure right off the top of my head.
Well, we
But I guess
like
that also works as an answer.
yeah,
well we talk about the books too, yes, but this is mostly about the DreamWorks franchise. So for all intents and purposes. But anyway, so let's talk about the Bewilderbeast because I think there's a lot to say about this whole beast. So first off, I guess I can ask you guys, what do you think about the idea of dragons having a king? Like a king of all dragons. What do you think about the concept?
They don't.
Okay.
nailed it.
There's not
Sure.
one.
Yeah.
Knowing you, Wolf, this is going to go in some weird direction. I'm going to regret asking what's your point, but I'm
I'll
going to
let
ask.
others go
No,
first.
I know what his point will be, or I have an idea of what it may be. But I think it's kind of funny how you get to it's kind of almost like the trope of where there's always a bigger and badder enemy out there. And granted, Valka's Bewilderbeast wasn't the bad one; it was Drago's. But it's like you go from the first movie with the Red Death, the Queen of Dragons, to the
Well, a queen of
Bewilderbeast.
a certain dragon nest.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, the Queen of Dragon Nest, but then the Bewilderbeast, the King of Dragons, who is much, much, much bigger than
Mhm.
the Red Death. So it's like this bigger, bigger, bigger. And then, granted, we didn't get it in. We're not getting it, well, to our knowledge, in the third movie, but in the Serpent's Heir, I believe, were the Forever Wings, were those notably larger or around the same size than the Bewilderbeast?
Supposedly, Forever Wings are supposed to be very similar in size to the Bewilderbeast, if not bigger.
Okay, so
I
yeah.
think I think the idea that like a big group of dragons instead of just one makes them look bigger in appearance. But like if you take one in particular, it may be the same size. If we go by Hiccup and
At the very least.
At the very
Some
least, yeah. But still, it's kind of funny how, oh, the King of Dragons is the largest freaking one out there. Okay, great. Sure.
Well, to be honest, if jumping the gun a bit here, looking at Toothless is pretty small compared to other dragons, so big things come in small packages, I guess. Sometimes.
Yes. But the idea of dragons having a king, it's kind of weird. I prefer the term alpha, but we'll get on that later, I guess.
Well, you know what, King, Alpha, at the end of the day, it's the same thing. Whatever.
Well, then why didn't you say that? No,
Well, isn't it obvious? Volga refers to it as the king of all dragons, and then everyone else refers to it as the Alpha. So the king is the Alpha. It's not. It's common sense, people. You built a computer, man. Come on.
that's technical sense, not common sense. Trust me. Um, Although if anybody follows the instructions with common sense follows the instructions, it could do the same thing. But no, so then I would agree with that. Like it kind of seems natural for any creature to have some form of a leader. So the coffee's not kicking in yet. I'm a little slow on my ideas.
Well, Wolf, do you want to go next, or
He already
You
went.
can go next. Well,
Okay.
no, I didn't. There's more to that statement.
yeah,
All
I'm
right.
sure people want to hear the rest of that statement because
Yeah,
there is more to that statement.
But wait,
Or I
there's
could just leave it
more.
hanging. We could just say,
Oh,
I say no, there is no king, and just leave it at that, and let you decide, ladies and gentlemen.
The
You really
king
get to know.
is dead.
yeah, sure, whatever. Okay. So, Wolf, do you want to hold the audience in more suspense, or do you want to go
Sure.
now? Okay, so I'll just say that in a sense it does make sense in the world, in the bigger world. Like, every nest has its queen, like we saw with Red Dead, but there's one king that is the supreme ruler. I like that idea. In terms of what both the movies and the show try to do with that idea, I have some critiques, which we'll get to, because, like I said, this dragon single-handedly kind of ruined the entire canon. And I think when we did a canon episode with Wolf a few months back, I think this was the main point of. I think, if I recall correctly, this was the main point of discussion. But as a concept, I like it. In execution, there are some stuff I like and some stuff I'm not sure about. At least not now. They can kind of fix it in the third movie, maybe. Not sure. That was your 1 minute to try and get out of the predicament you put yourself in, Wolf. No escape. You have to tell us what.
There is escape. He just leaves right now.
Yeah, this is true, but there's also another way, and you'll probably see very soon what that way is. The reason I say there's no king of dragons is because, simply put, it's a turn of phrase. Valka uses that to describe the Bewilderbeast, but there is no such thing as the king of all dragons.
I knew you
There
were
are
going to go that
alphas
way.
of dragons, but there is no such thing as the king of all dragons. And I think if you remember what I said on the episode that we did for the second movie, you'll probably knew very quickly that this was where I was going to go.
Well, it's been a lot of time since
Or
then.
you might have had an idea. This is true, it has been.
Hey, HC, why don't you edit the script, right-click edit message, and just say having an alpha? Because I said, oh, about an alpha, and then you just went on and, oh, they're one and the same thing if you have common sense. So, Wolf, what do you think about the dragons having an alpha?
The dragons do have alphas and they can have alphas, right? Because there can be multiple different alphas of different groups of dragons, but there is no such thing as the king of all dragons because that is not the same thing as an alpha. Again, that's why I say it was Valka using that as a descriptor for the Bewilderbeast, because that's what she saw it as.
Mm-hmm.
But keep in mind, it's not just Valka. When you take it into consideration, Johan and Krogan and Drago, all of them refer to it as a king of dragon.
They might all refer to it that way because that's the way they see it, but that does not mean that's what it is. And again, you have to keep in mind, like, the ability to control their dragons. And no, I'm not going to call it mind control. And yes, we'll get to that in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why they refer to it that way, because it can control all of the dragons, so obviously it's a king. But it can't control other dragons because that control can be broken because of what it is. And also, there's apparently also this particular type of dragon. There's not just one, because in order for there to be a king of all dragons, kind of can't have more than one king of all dragons. Otherwise, you have a problem there, which is why one of the
Then you go back
died in the second movie.
Then you go back to feudal England, and whew, that was a horrible time with multiple kings.
Mm-hmm.
I think at least as of now, from Bewilderbeast we do know about, there are around 3, not counting the one that dies in How to Train Dragon 2.
If we count species as a whole that are similar to the Bewilderbeast, you have the, as was said, the Red Death, the
Forever
Bewilderbeast
Wing.
itself, and
The,
then possibly the Forever Wing. The Forever Wing might be subspecies because we don't know if it can control other dragons.
Or if it even wanted to. It was just sleeping, man. Why you gotta do that to me?
yeah, you know something, you can probably control people to let you sleep. Like, you know, I don't have time for this shit. Like, leave me alone. Okay. And now you can just sleep and chill and everything.
I mean,
And
I
be an
guess
island.
we can end the Berkcast early if you're that pissy about it.
Okay,
Except-
not
Except
not the point, for the love of. Okay, stop putting the words of Adia in my mouth, Rush. I mean, come on, not professional at all.
Ouch.
but yeah,
Anyway,
there is no king. Just a turn of phrase and descriptor that people have used to describe the Bewilderbeast for different reasons, but there is no actual king of all dragons.
okay, I can say that as a point of view. So now that
It's the right
so now
point of view.
let me ask you this. So forget king. What do you think about the idea of having a dragon, which people refer to as the king, which people refer to as the thing that controls the dragons? Do you think let me ask you this in that regard.
I
If
think
you're going to say there are no people who say this, I'm going to.
I think the idea of the Bewilderbeast is fine. I think the idea of having a dragon that can control dragons is a fine is a fine idea, and there's nothing wrong with it as it stands.
Okay. So now let me again, in the script I refer to it as king, but for the sake of some people here, you know who, I'll refer to it as an alpha. So how do you think this entire alpha thing works? Like, we've seen some Bewilderbeasts. Again, we saw three in general, but you know, how do we know which one is the quote-unquote king? How do you know this is the one that the dragons follow necessarily?
Well,
Because we have Valka's dragon, which you know, when we meet him, he's the king. And then you have Dragos, which you know, kills them and he becomes the king. What about like the third one that was under Berserker Island? And everything?
well,
Like,
Eitzi, you have to think about this in terms of how actual alphas work. It's literally that. There's never a penultimate alpha. They're always in their own little, you know, clans. And the ultimate alpha in the end is the one that, if they ever do meet, kills the other alpha and takes over. And, you know, that can either lead to some horrifying, oh, you know, they kill all the followers of the other one, or the followers just follow the new quote unquote alpha. There's never an end all be all alpha of all alphas, unless, let's say, they all meet and there's only one standing. But that just rarely, if ever, happens.
Okay. Because you know, the reason though is because you know, you can say so much about this is how this character represents it and everything, but as an audience member, when I hear the phrase "this is the king of all dragons," you know, my mind comes to certain conclusions. So this is why I'm asking this, because you know, we are represented this as the king of all dragons. So, and now we know it apparently came from an egg. Like,
I don't think we are. I don't think the movie purports that this is the king of all dragons. Yeah, I know that's the term Valka uses, and that's the phrase she uses.
She says, sure, every nest has its queen, but this is the king of dragons. Not all dragons, just the king. And
No,
that could
she
just
says
relate
it's
to the
king of all
species itself.
She says the king of all dragons. I rewatched that moment just to be sure. For
Oh,
this
okay.
episode.
There you go then. I haven't rewatched it for this episode. Bad rush. Anyway, fair enough. Sorry, continue.
But I was just going to say, like, the reason I say it's a phrase or a term that she uses as describing the dragon, as describing the Bewilderbeast, is because I think the second movie goes out of its way to show that, this dragon can't be the king of all dragons because one, there's multiple, so that doesn't quite work as well, and two, we can easily see that if this dragon was the king of all dragons, then Toothless would never be able to beat another Bewilderbeast. Even if, the Bewilderbeasts can attack one another, then, sure, that idea might work out, but Toothless would never be able to be the quote-unquote king either. Like, that wouldn't work. That only works with this one type of dragon, so obviously there is no such thing as king, there's just the alpha.
It could also have been the fact that nobody had ever seen another dragon take on a Bewilderbeast, so they just gave it the nomenclature of king. There's never a definitive king, they just thought it was.
And again, this is why I say this is something that Volka says from her perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you also need consideration that again, if we count the show in, and there's no reason not to. Like when, how do you find out where the King of Dragons is? Using the dragon eye, you need the 5 different types of lenses. Why? So why would you need the 5 classes of dragons in order to come across this one if he's not the king? Again, you can say this is just the writers trying to build it up,
I mean, yeah, that was the MacGuffin quest, but I don't need to use that as defense for it. I can just say because the person who created the dragon, I knew that the Bewilderbeast could control other dragons. That's why you need the 5 other classes, because the Bewilderbeast can control all of the other dragons. And that's what gives it that, and that's why people reference to it as king, because it can control all of the other dragons.
And it's such a freaking massive dragon that they might just, again, I'm gonna stick to my it's just a name like guns here, because we see a king in, well, not modern times, but in historical purposes, being like the big ruler over people, because, and there you go with Wolf, because he can quote unquote control dragons. I mean, the queen could as well, but the king is much larger, etc., etc. And it's always just been a title. It's not like this is the best person of all the people. No, this person can just control other people. So for the dragon, this may be the best. We don't know. So we'll just call it the king. This doesn't mean it's the best. Even in universe, it doesn't mean it's the best.
Okay. And so basically we came to the conclusion that he's not necessarily the king, quote unquote, but people who research dragons and came across it and saw everything it has to offer just assumed that he's the king because of the mind control. That's
or because it's so freaking huge.
Rush, if you think this thing looks cute, I don't know what.
Huge.
Why did it? Oh god. Internet connection. I blame the internet connection.
I think a Bewilderbeast could look adorable.
Maybe not Dragos.
Something? There is probably fan art or somewhere that makes the Bewilderbeast the cutest thing ever made.
Yeah, I believe either, I think Dirty Fox made like chibi versions or something like that, almost. Just mini versions of the Bewilderbeast.
I'll look it up because something that I would like to see, like a cute chubby Bewilderbeast. Maybe whatever looked like once he came out of the egg after he exploded. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you, Wolf. I appreciate that picture. And
cute Bewilderbeast.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's not the Bewilderbeast necessarily, but it's 50% of that picture. Anyway, before people have no idea what we're talking about, let's move on. We did talk about it that it is implied that the Bewilderbeasts and Queens of Nests like the Red Deaths have mind control powers. So we kind of talked about this already, but do you think that's how they achieve power? They just take over the minds of other dragons?
Some
And
maybe.
damn it, Wolf, stop sending these pictures right now. I'm trying to be professional, and I'm stopping myself from going, "Aww."
Anyway,
It's adorable.
HC, if
Yeah,
for once I'm actually bringing this back on topic.
yeah.
I think that it depends because like the Queen was doing it for selfish reasons, feed me. Drago's Bewilderbeast was doing it because basically Drago somehow controlled the Bewilderbeast itself and told it to. But Valka's
He yelled it.
Bewilderbeast, yeah, yell at it. Valka's Bewilderbeast did no such thing. It never attempted to control the dragons. All the dragons were there on their own accord. So maybe that's another reason why it could be considered a king, because it didn't it like, even if they didn't use their mind control powers, it seems like dragons would still flock to it as a protector, because it's a large dragon. It probably it stops all arguments between dragons with a single roar and stuff like that. So you might think that just dragons flock to it naturally. And so, like, they don't really achieve power through mind control. It's just an option.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Here's something I thought about. Not necessarily regarding the mind control though, but as nature would have, ice puts out fire, and most dragons, as we know, breathe fire. Not just that's the common thing you think about when you think about dragons. In this universe, dragons breathe fire, all of them. Different kinds of fire, but so do you think maybe researching this, like people who found the Bewilderbeast and Clement the King, maybe people also thought about it because he can control the dragon's fire.
What?
All dragons are afraid that this thing would ice them if they if they pissed it off or something.
I see what you're going for, but I don't think that's the inherent case, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're just here right? Concrete fact. I'm just thinking about everything we know.
What
about
things we don't know?
Then,
well,
I'll be going into that, I'm sure. But I don't think it's the case inherently.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sure.
Essentially, I'm saying I think you're wrong.
Yeah, and essentially, you're the one who could be wrong. We don't know.
Nah, that's never the case. I'm
Nah.
always right.
Yeah, some. We need to go over all the predictions episode we did, and you know what? I know you wanted it and not predicted it, but I'll use it because I can. We didn't get that episode from the dragon's perspective in Race to the Edge, so
But we have possibly, if I'm not mistaken, what Dragon's Rescue Riders coming up, maybe as a thing. So
well,
I'm not wrong yet.
Until that's confirmed, we don't.
And we still have the graphic novels.
Well, there's probably only more after Dragonvine. I don't think so, but we've been wrong before. I've been
the
wrong.
Third movie, so there's still a lot of chances for me to be right.
Yeah, but you said episode. There's no episode in a movie.
There's a scene.
But you said episode, not a scene.
That's because that's what I wanted from the show. If I get it in some other form, then I'll still be happy. And I'll still be right.
Okay. Fine. Oh God, this episode really turns us against each other. I'm noticing. So the conclusion I came to is that we all want to be the bear. I can talk.
Mm-hmm.
We all want to be the belt.
Uh-huh.
which brings, so quiet right now. He probably doesn't have an idea how we got to this topic. So I'll assign him the role of the Berserker Island Bewilderbeast. Like, we saw him and now he disappeared.
No, I've just been hearing you guys fight. It's nice to be on the other side of the coin for once.
Hello from the other side.
Not much of a fight, though, really.
Yeah.
A mild argument.
Not even that.
You two were talking and I was listening.
There you go.
Well, if there's sorry, I need to say this now, but if there's any time that the role I had assigned you earlier came into effect, it's definitely now as well.
Something I know Wolf is Canadian, but I just wanted to use that phrase that Wolf gives us all the Canadian shrug off.
He's not Canadian.
No,
Yeah,
he knows.
That's what I said.
I thought you said he is Canadian. Like what?
No. I said I know he's not, but I just heard in like a commentary channel where people said he's given this thing the Canadian shrug off, and I just want to use that on the Berkcast at one point.
Fair enough.
Well, okay, so where were we?
Back on
Oh
topic.
yeah.
Talking about mind control powers, even though they're not mind control powers.
Well, said the person who claims dragons want to be mind controlled, as a side note. But okay, you know what, Wolf? You're the only one who hasn't said anything really about this topic. So what do you think? Do you think the Bewilderbeast uses his not mind control powers to achieve power?
I mean, number one, like I said this in our episode on the second movie, I don't think it's mind control because I feel like the second movie goes out of its way to show that it is control through sound, and simply that. I mean, with the Bewilderbeast, the sound it makes, you have the fact that the second movie goes out of its way to do a zoom in for no particular reason on Volka's staff when she makes a sound with it that makes the dragons act like torches. I said this in our episode on the second movie. Like, why do that? Why have that zoom in on her staff for no reason other than to show she's controlling the dragons through sound? She's using sound to give them direction.
Well,
and that's the exact same thing the Red Death and the Bewilderbeast do. They control through sound.
Did you also mention Drago? Not only does his scream, but if you ever listen closely to his spinning staff, it makes a kind of a whooshing sound as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I've always been with you on that, Wolf, how it's always been sound.
I think that's... And it I'll be honest, it bothers me a little bit when everyone says, "Oh, it's mind control." Like, I get, they are controlling them, so mind control just works as a turn of phrase, as a statement to get across what you mean. But I think a lot of people have just taken that as it's just literal mind control. There is no other difference, but there is. In my opinion, there is. Anyways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ezra says I'm very pedantic.
I know where you're coming from.
I am. But this is just, it is just my opinion. You don't have to agree with it or anything like that. But to answer like the full question, do I think that's how the Red Death and the Bewilderbeast achieve their power? For some of them, sure. And I would even argue that that's how Valka's Bewilderbeast achieved its power as well. Because no, it may not control the dragons in a total sense. Then it tells them exactly what they do or don't want to do. And no, it may not be selfish like the Red Death, saying I'm using this power to make you feed me because I'm extremely lazy. But there's no saying that it doesn't control them to say, okay, I don't want any fights, I don't want any nonsense, so here's just a controlling tune that basically says good vibes.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the Valka's Bewilderbeast makes every single dragon that it comes in contact with high.
So that's what it
similar.
does.
Not quite the same thing as Dragon Nip, but similar.
Mm-hmm. So maybe that's why the babies do it. They're not in the right age for comfortable
No.
being high.
See? The babies aren't legal yet, so they can't get high.
This is the part where I edit the video.
Oh my God. Okay. Here's a question. Just
I'm not saying do drugs, kids. That's not what the Berkcast endorses right now.
Oh, obviously.
Not yet, wink, apparently.
Rush, no. We advertised such thing.
Some
Don't-
drugs are okay.
No, no.
Some drugs are being made legal right as we speak. Well, not right as we speak.
You
but
can't
they're
say
in the
no to
process
that
of being made
because
What
that
are
is
you
true.
hiding? What are you recording?
Definitely not in a prison.
I didn't say the things like this are being made right now as we speak. So what is happening in your background? I hear a lot of typing.
There's definitely not people harvesting drugs as we speak. I assure you. There's definitely. I'm not recording in a drug lab. I assure you.
I'll take your word for it. I don't believe it, but I'll take your word for it. Anyway.
But again, like I think, back on topic, I do think that, yeah, that they do use that power. They do use the ability to control dragons to their advantage in some way. And I would be willing to say that all of the Bewilderbeasts do this. Even Volcus did this. To some extent, perhaps. I have no proof of that. That's just my opinion. But fan artists, there's a thing you can draw, though. I just gave you a great idea. Fan writers, great idea.
Yeah, I think
Have Volca explaining that one to Hiccup.
yeah, I think writers have with this because there's more story potential than visual potential here. But hey, whatever works.
I don't know. Drawing all the dragons looking high. Pretty sure it's already been done because Dragon Nip, but still,
You know something? You think reverse like The Longest Day, where the dragons are high and the riders put them to sleep by the end of it. Let's do this.
Best ideas only from the Berkcast.
And I just want to brought up an idea, and Wolf said this is the best idea. So yeah, I got a compliment. Yay! For once in 80-something episodes. But anyway, back on the episode that we're currently trying to do. Do you think Toothless or Night Furies in general have a connection to the Bewilderbeast? Because as far as we know, Toothless is the first non-Bewilderbeast alpha dragon. So maybe there's a connection. And if I start on this one, this is something I thought about. It's probably not true. It's kind of a long shot, but I just like to connect things. And in order to even believe it just slightly, we need to take in, assume they had like Rest of the Edge seasons 5 and 6 planned from the start. We need to take that into consideration if you want to believe what I'm going to say. At the end of Rest of the Edge season 2, when Vigo uses the dragon, we see a Night Fury picture. Now, for all intents and purposes, in regards to the show, this is never built upon, and we never really expected it to be built upon because, why? We know we are not going to find any Night Furies before How to Train Your Dragon 2. But when you take into consideration that Vigo is trying to potentially fight the King of Dragons because of the deal with Drago we hear about later. Do you think there's maybe a connection to the Night Furies and the Bewilderbeasts? Again, all speculation because we don't know anything for sure.
Personally, I would say no.
Yeah, I know people know as well, but again, I'm just overthinking stuff because they put it in there to believe it wasn't just to keep people coming because they wanted people to come back for the next season with a small tease that didn't really lead to something.
Mhm.
It's and
It's an idea. It's not one that I would inherently agree with, but it's an idea. Like, I mean, you could probably run with it and do something interesting with it, sure. But I would say, as of right now, there's nothing there that gives me any pause to say maybe. This could
I-
change, but as of right now, I think I would say
and because man, I had a point. Ugh, I hate when that happens. When I'm like, I have something to say and then it goes away. No, because when I do think about just a random question to talk about, do you think other dragons tried to take on the Bewilderbeast? Because it's again everything here is something that the third movie could come and like say dragons tried to do this and that and it didn't work well. This so far with this episode kind of shot stuff in the dark here because nothing has really been confirmed about the Bewilderbeast and everything, so this is all just speculation. But that's the fun of it, I think, just to talk about it, what everyone thinks.
Yeah. And I would say, yeah, there's definitely probably other dragons who have tried to take on the Bewilderbeast for control of the group or the pack or what have you. I mean, we did see just that happen in the second movie where the Bewilderbeasts attacked one another for control of the rest of the flock. So I would say it's definitely possible other dragons have done the same. I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, the only thing that would be stopping them is the Bewilderbeast can probably control them. And if the Bewilderbeast can control them, then obviously, and this is where I say I do think Volka's Bewilderbeast was using its ability to some extent, even if it wasn't total control like Drago's Bewilderbeast did. It was using that ability to basically stop challengers and to keep things non-violent and non-confrontational, if you will. Like it was basically it created a place where just nothing but peace. Whether that's good or not, whether you agree with that or not, is a different story. But I think it's definitely possible that Volka's Bewilderbeast did do that, and that the dragons were docile because of that, more so than possibly normal or usual.
Okay. And speaking about them, I know you're not control, but for the sake of but for the sake that it's easier to describe it as such, I'll refer to it as mind control. Okay, Wolf?
Fair enough. Again, I know what people say that, and whether I have a problem with it or not doesn't matter. It's what it's always going to be used as. So all I have to say is fair enough. Just I don't feel
actually,
that
you know
it is
what?
that.
Before we go on,
What can you say when you have no better
Right.
descriptor?
Before anybody goes on, how long were you talking about drugs while I had to step aside? For the listeners who are wondering why I was so quiet, I had to step aside for a second.
Yeah.
And so, good. Well, I realized because you guys are still talking about the mind control powers, the topic we were on about 10 to 15 minutes ago with the drug break in between. Okay, that sounds really wrong, but
I just saw that as soon as I saw you got, because we were about to wrap this up, I said that I asked if you think Toothless or Nitros in general have some connection to the Bewilderbeast based on that small tease at the end of Race to the Edge 2, where we see Viggo using the Dragon Iron, we see a Night Fury. So, I don't like stuff like that going to waste, because honestly, in the long run, this changed nothing in Race to the Edge at all. So I just said, if the Dragon Eye does lead them to the King of Dragons because of the deal with Drago and everything, do you think there may be a connection? Wolf and I kind of debated that. No, there's no real connection. I'm just connecting the dots. But what do you think?
I think you like to reach at the worst possible theories just to ask questions that Wolf and I will always pretty much answer no at the very beginning.
Well, I felt not the snuggle tug theory, where you were both, yes, that actually makes sense. But
I know, I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. But
Of
Yeah, no,
course.
I think it was just a writer decision trying to get something going, but then they decided to go to a completely different direction.
Mhm.
Like before the end of the season of the series, they really didn't even mention that it was leading them to the King of the Dragons. Like Vigo just says, like it'll allow me to hunt down every single dragon species. Like he doesn't mention that when he has the Night Fury in the center of it after
Yeah,
unlocking it.
I did mention it while you bit that in order to believe that we'll have to believe that they Race to the Edge season 5 and 6 planned when they made that ending.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we talked about several times in the show that no, that's not the case.
It's worth keeping in mind, right? Like by season 2, when we saw that little teaser in season 2, we didn't know at that point in time if the show was going to have a season 5 and season 6.
Mm-hmm.
That
We
was still
knew
up in the air somewhat.
we knew up to 4, but we didn't know
Mhm.
5 and 6.
Yep.
And we don't know, and this is very much speculation here and a little bit off topic, but we have no clue that where the movie was at that point, and we do know Dean has rewritten the movie at least one time fully
This was
and
actually
completely.
season 2 was right around the time of the Comcast acquisition, right?
I think so.
Actually, no,
Mm.
no, because the Comcast thing came after we started the Berkcast, and we started it between season 3 and 4.
Okay.
So
Well, that's
maybe it was in process, early process, but it didn't happen.
yeah. Well, then even worse then, because that means that it could have changed after the fact that it was written too.
So, with all of that in mind, what I was going to say is it's very possible that the second movie was being either rewritten or in the process there was new ideas being thrown around for the third movie, I mean. So with all that being the case, maybe the show was going to go into more detail on Night Furies being in the Dragon Eye, but they were told, no, you can't do this because this is something we're going to now do for the third movie, right?
Yeah, but having the entire movie doesn't mean that for let's say noblesse, rewriting the entire movie wasn't in an earlier draft. It doesn't necessarily mean
Yeah,
that.
I know. And but I mean, even with that though, they could have come and said, "No, you can't cover this," right? Because this has been something that I think, if I'm not mistaken, the show's creators talked about during Riders of Berk and Defenders of Berk before the second movie came out. They weren't
Yeah.
really allowed to touch on Hiccup and Astra's relationship as much.
Yeah, no, I do remember them saying that, like Dean, he would be there only to tell him what to not, like what to not do, to make sure they weren't going over any topics that they were talking about on the, um, or
On
like
the
they were gonna
second
have,
movie.
which is why like in the second to last episode, sorry, third to last because we had the two-parter of Defenders of Berk, we lose Tornado or Stoic has to give him up, but either way. Yeah, makes sense. Did you guys also go on the Toothless talking about mind control? Sorry,
Yeah, as soon as we were
not mind
about
control.
yeah, as soon as we
Moving
were
to it
about to
now.
touch that, you came back. So
Okay.
it's time. So do you think Toothless can now that he's the alpha? I personally think no. Like in Serpent Cell, we saw certain points where like he has this, like he uses the alpha mode in order to let like people dragons know that yeah, I'm the alpha, but it doesn't seem like he's necessarily using the sound or anything like the. It seems different than the Bewilderbeast.
I don't think he has the, stay with me on this, equipment to make the noise. Because it seems like with uh, the sound that the queen, the Red Death, was making, that sounded like it was something that was coming from like a vocal vibration, which requires a lot of echo chambering, like the throat, to make. And then we see the Bewilderbeast, which, while you think it may be the front twingle things doing that, those are just actually vibrating with it. But I think it's because it's always from the throat, because you need a lot of space in order to get it to vibrate at the correct frequency. And the fact that the front little frills are vibrating on the Bewilderbeast doesn't mean the Bewilderbeast is vibrating them. It could just be a reaction to the echo chamber effect of the throat for the gigantic, um, the gigantic dragons.
Could be.
I'll say the only time we've ever seen Toothless in any way, shape, or form use the alpha mode as anything is in one of the graphic novels. We've not seen him do it in anything that is animated as of yet. So,
Well,
and the reason I say
you
this is
could
because
actually you could argue after when he beats the Bewilderbeast at the end of 2, and he has that awesome roll that I love so much, and after that we see the Bewilderbeast like sort of bow down. You could maybe argue.
I think that's just because he got his butt kicked.
That's not mind control too. They will make a specific, and I will argue this. So fight me. That they would make a specific noise choice. They wouldn't just have Toothless is silent, mind control be silent. They would have him have a sound for it.
They would.
As they would not, with as much attention to detail as they've been having in this whole series, they would not leave that out.
Because again, the second movie really did pay attention to sound for different sounds, for different methods of either directing the dragons or controlling them entirely. From Valka to Drago to the Bewilderbeasts themselves. And
good point.
I think it's definitely possible that Toothless might be able to use some form of control with the alpha mode, using possibly the plasma in some way, shape, or form to make certain sounds for directing, maybe even controlling the dragons. It's possible. We've not been shown anything that says he can't do that. And we've not been shown anything that says he can do that. I don't think him becoming alpha gave him that. But like, I can see where this question is coming from, and I can definitely, like, even though I'll sit here and say, no, I don't think Toothless has the ability to control other dragons. I don't think that's an ability that he has or has gained by unlocking the, quote-unquote alpha mode. I think but I can see the idea here, where it's coming from, and say that there's nothing to go against it, but that means very little in the term in anything, really.
There is a reason why you have the sits on a fence so much role.
I mean, I find the idea interesting, I guess, and that's why I'm willing to at least look into it a bit more and give it a bit more of a maybe. But again, I still sit firmly on the no, this isn't a thing, and I doubt anything will ever, and I doubt the third movie or any of the graphic novels or anything future that they come out with will ever hint at or do something like this as well.
Well, I think this is something that you don't want to, and I'm just going to use this in the general sense, not just for Toothless. This isn't something you may want to like focus on in a movie in terms of just the sound. That I think that it would be great, in my opinion, if they just left it up to the viewer to figure it out themselves. They don't say like, you never say, "Oh, I control dragons through sound." Well, it's like, well, great, thanks. That was kind of obvious. Why do you need to say it? It's just a little tidbit of detail that's just so incredibly just ingrained into the movies that if
I agree.
I just wish that, or I hope they have it in the third movie in some shape or form. Not mind control, but just using sound in some way.
Because it's been prevalent from the first movie. Even if it was very minor, it was still there. And I feel like they realized they weren't clear enough with what the Red Death was doing, and it was kind of confusing. And I think that's why they went out of their way in the second movie to do more with it. And I think at this point they have to think, okay, there's no way you could slip up and say, okay, this is just straight up mind control. They're just controlling the dragon's minds, and that's it. I don't think you can say that anymore. That's why I'm against the idea of using that term or phrase. That's why I generally just say control. But because the second movie was just, to me, it was very clear, and what it was doing when it focused in on certain shots, and the idea of just so much how it focus so much on the idea of sound and everything. I think it was very clear that the second movie wanted to make it very clear that they control the other dragons through sound. They give them direction through sound.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the third movie, we probably won't see as much of that anymore, because I feel like Dean and any other writer who helps him on the movies or has any capacity or creative control whatsoever, anyone in that position at this point, I feel like they'll see the second movie, they'll see what they've done with the second movie, and they'll say, okay, I think we've been as clear as we possibly can without coming outright and saying it. I think we can move on.
Mm-hmm.
Just to final touch on this, that I do want to mention, if Toothless does have some sort of, again, quote unquote, mind control, and then props to him for not using it and actually trying to get her. You know what? That's a gentleman right there. We love you, Toothless. Good job.
Well, what if he doesn't even know he can do it?
And Toothless is just a really bad
You know
alpha.
Yeah,
We're all
you don't need
thinking
to
it,
give
though.
the credit to me. Give the credit to Toothless, damn it. Believe in the dragon.
Nah, Toothless is evil. Wolf made me see the way. He would have done it if he could.
He made you see the way. May I need to remind to replay the episode to you?
I don't know what you're talking about. That episode will somehow disappear in the next 3 minutes.
Sure. Oh, look at this. When my old computer died, I managed to back up one episode specifically. It's that one. Awesome. Let's do this. Re-upload. But, okay. That aside, so do you think we may see a new Bewilderbeast in the next movie or a future spin-off or something? Do you think there's hope for this giant dragon in the future of this franchise?
No.
Personally, okay. You
Very
said
hard no there real quick.
Well, I thought we would do we just give our yes or no and then our arguments, right?
Well, then if that's the case, then I'll say maybe.
Oh, great.
I have to.
Here's what I say. We all know after How to Train Dragon the World, this is the end of Toothless' story, at least as Dean sees it. So, in the Hidden World, not necessarily. But if one day in the future someone will decide to pick this franchise up and do something with it, either between the movies or maybe maybe even after, if someone picks it up and decides to do something interesting with it, I can see them using the Bewilderbeast. But in the near future, though, because right now the things that are confirmed to come out are the Hidden World, obviously, and the graphic novels. In those, I don't think so. But in a spin-off, no. In a spin-off, we don't know.
I would say something very much along the same lines. It's possible in a future spin-off, or either the DreamWorks comes out with a new movie they want to do that's a spin-off movie, because this is something that they've been looking at doing for other franchises that they have. And like I've said in the past, I would be fine if they did this with How to Train Your Dragon, if it was a spin-off and they said, all right, Hiccup story is done, let's do something completely different in the same world. I've said this many times, I'd be fine with that. And it's definitely possible then you could see either, at the very least, Drago's Bewilderbeast return, or you could see a new Bewilderbeast there. In the third movie, I think it's, again, possible, because we still do have Drago. He still is there. Something does have to come up about him, but that doesn't necessarily mean we'll see him and his Bewilderbeast in the film. We could very well just get hey, he's relegated to a mention, And even though it's not confirmed, we still do have Dragon's Rescue Riders. Whatever that might be, that could also focus on a Bewilderbeast. That could focus on seeing Volka's Bewilderbeast growing up. It all depends.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
So-
possible. I doubt it, but possible.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm with Wolf on the maybe the Rescue Riders or spin-off. Definitely not movies, because movies tend to the movies or the second movie so far didn't really tend to focus on. I'm not going to say tend to focus on the events of the first movie, but they didn't bring up much. Like they didn't
Mhm.
say, "Oh, oh, this is Hiccup the Master who defeated the Red Death." They didn't even mention the Red Death until the TV show. Granted, the TV show,
Yeah.
the Riders of Berk TV show came first, but still, they didn't even mention the fact that he. It's like, this is Hiccup the Dragon Slayer, blah blah blah. They just never brought it up, and it's not for you know not for bad reason. It's just they just didn't want to draw the focus to another movie, so they didn't bring another Red Death. They brought in a Bewilderbeast, and the way that now, given if we had done the script before How to Train Your Dragon Hidden World trailer came out, it was very possible. So for several reasons, one, we didn't.
We could have said movies as well, but with the trailer out, no.
Yeah, with the trailer out, the way that they show the movie going, I don't think that it would be in the next movie. Obviously, like I said, before the trailer came out, we thought Drago was going to be in the third movie. So it's like, well, now that he's not, no. But I definitely agree with.
You know something on the spot question. Let's say that we know we are probably going to get another trailer like shortly before the movie releases.
Mhm.
How would you react if all of a sudden you saw Bewilderbeast in the trailer, even if it's just one shot?
I wouldn't care. I don't react. You saw my Five Nights at Freddy's jump scare reaction. I don't react to things like that.
Yeah.
So
I'd be a little bit surprised, maybe at best, and that'd be it. So I mean, yeah, I'd be with Rush. It wouldn't be a major reaction.
actually, no, I'd be pissed because you called it and I didn't.
Okay, like huge what if scenario. They probably won't go there, but everything's possible. Who knows? So anything else to say before we close this discussion?
The title of this episode will be the drug episode.
No.
Yes.
No.
You know what? If we did this during the Drago episode, I would have called it the Drug-O episode.
Yeah, I was
That would
just
have been great.
Oh, dang it.
I was just damn it. Well, missed opportunity. Oh well,
Mhm.
we'll live. So, anything else about the Bewilderbeast? Something serious and has nothing to do with illegal substance?
What about stuff that's with almost legal subs?
Oh, for the love of.
I'd love to. No, I don't really have much more to say. I don't think. I think I covered everything I felt like saying.
Mm-hmm.
I covered everything as well. What about you, Rush?
I could talk more about sounds, but Wolf and I have already talked that should be its own episode several times. We need to get to it.
Okay, so that's the episode of the Berkcast. We hope you enjoyed. What do you think about the Bewilderbeast? Do you think does he have mind control or is it just sound? What do you think about his connection to the Night Furies? Does it exist? Anything you want to tell us about the Bewilderbeast and what your thoughts are, no matter how far-fetched, you can tell us all about it in the comment section below, on Tumblr, where we are now Berkcast Team, on Twitter, where we are Berkcast with capital B, capital C, and you can find us all on the How to Train Your Dragon Valhalla server, Discord server. So, until next time, I was HC.
I was Rush.
And I've been Wolf.
And we will talk to you all next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.